in researching and developing engaging pedagogies. Teac7119 Assessment 2, student number 18376845. Pedagogy, Creative Classroom, Specialization Mathematics. My first practicum was held at Darcy Public School and had 722 students and was assigned Stage 1, Year 2. The school had a ratio of students of males of 0.98 to 1, and Indigenous enrollments into the school stands at 0%, but have some students come from a wide range of socio-economic backgrounds, from 27 different nationalities and 48 home languages. The school had a total economic disadvantage to students and families of 4%, meaning that most students are well off. The school's approach is We Strive, and school values include respectful, safe, honest, responsible, and caring. The school aims to provide challenging learning programs that promote high achievement. To support these programs, we use modern technology and quality teaching strategies consistently. The classroom was a general classroom for roll call and visual arts, but after roll call, students would move around to different classrooms based off abilities for subjects, mathematics, English, HSIE, and reading groups. The school had 15 demountable classrooms and old buildings, which was spread across years 2, and was subjected to both areas of the classrooms, including a learning space. There was a combination of teachers, but most had been new to the career as a graduate or just being a teacher. As the school was old, technology was scarce, and teaching was based on inquiry and hands-on learning, but occasionally had the opportunity for laptops. Students in my class, I had one student who experienced trauma, and about 15% in which were learning below stage level in Year 2, which was put down to COVID arriving and influencing learning. Mathematics can be more engaging by using the pedagogy creative classroom, as it allows to be flexible seating, which is great for on-the-floor learning, table seating, and group work to draw on others' answers and techniques. Environmental impacts also offer a factor in creative classroom within mathematics. Students tend to be more engaging when an environment changes to outside, as it can be more exciting as something new to experience. Setting goals and visualization ideas within mathematics to solve and learn can influence growth and allow for stimulation within a subject, especially if a goal is manageable and is reached. Mathematics is a reasonable and creative activity that is integral to scientific and technological advances that needs to be creative for students to maintain and enjoy learning a positive self-concept, and then can become self-motivated learners through participation. By incorporating the ME framework, it allows for planning and analytical tools that help teachers pinpoint ways to improve student motivation and engagement while also improving learning outcomes. Munn, Sawyer, and Cole 2013. Based off looking at the E in engagement, we move our focus to how to motivate student engagement. Munn 2013. Creative classroom pedagogy would be useful within a learning context to be able to promote engagement within a learning environment such as a classroom. The pedagogy of creative classroom encourages divergent thinking, accepts novel artifacts, fosters collaboration, offers opinions, and includes rules that expand rather than confine. Lasky and Loon 2020. By implementing a classroom that is creative, it can be integrated into teaching. It can be used within mathematics specialization area. Students can feel inspired and develop interest through learning materials and environmental movement. Learning Experience 1 Outcome MA1GM03. Use informal units to measure lengths and distances by placing the units end to end without gaps or overlapping. In this experience, students will be in groups of mixed abilities. Students are tasked with a measurement activity that will engage creativity, classroom pedagogy of movement and creativity. They will use tape on the carpet to create a distance and use objects to measure the space without any gaps. This learning experience links to creative classroom movement, creative thinking using environmentally different. High motivation, students are given the freedom within range to experiment length, measure tape is a creative tool, something out of the ordinary. High cognitive, this task allows students to think about why the length may be different with different objects to measure the length. Learning Experience 2 Outcome MA1GM03. Select appropriate uniform informal units to measure length and distances. Students are tasked with an activity of going into the natural world and measuring objects using books, pencils, etc. to find a measurement continuing on from previous lesson. They can compare and estimate if two seats will be the same size and why. Link to engagement. Creative classroom. Outside activity encouraging movement and creative thinking. High motivation. Experimenting with objects, moving around and encouraging students to question measurement. High cognitive. This allows students to really challenge their thinking and see if other objects can be the same length or different after measuring. Learning Experience 3. Outcome MAOWM01. Recognize and explain the relationship between the size of a unit and the number of units needed. Students will make string based off the height and use measurement units to find their height and differences between theirs and other students. Students will go outside to measure their shadows to see if it is the same. Link to engagement. Creative classroom. Outside lesson encourages movement, engaging divergent thinking. High motivation. Height differences will motivate them to see if they are the same as another student. High cognitive. All estimates, experimentations, and correct measurement to stimulate correct responses. The project will follow ethical guidelines for conducting research with children in a school context. Observational data. Observational data analysis is a tool used frequently, as it allows for fast evaluating of student progress during a lesson. Creative classroom is where students are able to be encouraged to be divergent, curious, and have an interest. To effectively collect data for mathematics in a creative classroom, observational data collect will be used most effectively due to lessons chosen involving movement outside the environment and encourage divergent thinking. By observing the students, the teacher will find from successful students' engagement within the classroom, questions are experimenting of length, group or individual work, and objects being measured. Plan strategies to collect students' work samples. Work samples can be physically seen, which in maths is important to collect data as teachers can write reports and gather evidence on a student's progress or lack of. As these lessons are based on pedagogic creative classroom, work samples will be creative and encouraging curiosity, but will show if answers are wrong or right. After a student has finished their work, it is best to mark then as a teacher can reflect whilst the information is fresh in a student's mind. The work can be glued into a book or written into a book later on. The work samples show effort and engagement. Tools to document student self-reflection data. Student self-assessment framework is reflect, engage, authentic learning. There are many ways students can self-reflect on a lesson within their progress or understanding. A KWL chart is terrific as it shows what they know, wonder, and learnt, which can help them remember and reflect, but also allow teachers to see if their lesson was effective. Another idea is if teachers can prompt questions from students, i.e., how can we apply what we have learned here today in another situation? What could we have done better? What are you proud of? By stating and correcting, identifying how to reflect, students can form habits to reflect correctly. I plan to use data of engagement collected to offer students a space where I can effectively assess student learning and teach a lesson which I prepare. These three data collections I have chosen are able to all different and offer various ways in which to gain the data. We aim for student success with a data collection. Firstly, self-reflection can be done through exit slips and having success criteria and learning intentions for students to assess themselves. This sets them up to make good habits. This data then also becomes a work sample. Observation is important, and to gain this data, this needs to be done through questions. What is the child doing? Is the child asking questions and being curious? Are they adding anything to the lesson? Students can be placed accordingly into high cognitive, affective, and operant engagement files. This can be accessible for further teaching and be used as a basis for each student's improvement, which can be used for reports or to improve teacher practice. Unfortunately, data may be limited due to students being away, but alternatively, the data, when done correctly, will show any issues or success practically and mentally, especially in mathematics as it is both. Data can be used from engagement to show any student that may be at risk. Data collection can be gathered through behavioral engagement data in regarding to conventional and e-learning part in the classroom. Behavioral data for engagement can include such as time spent on an activity and activities completed. Gorgas Polis, Charlecus, and Zalapus, and Kossi 2020. Moving towards action research, it allows for documenting for teacher success and encourages a sense of self in professional practices. It has also provided myself with knowledge to self-reflect professionally and the ability to learn and modify my teaching practice. Additionally, although I have learned, it also aligns with the teaching standards 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Australian Teaching Standards 2011. Teachers must be able to acknowledge how students learn, which is interconnected to engagement, as without it, students lack the motivation and habits to be excited to learn. Creative classroom pedagogy connects with Standard 3, plans for and implement effective teaching and learning. Standard 3 impacts students' learning environments and how they are taught, enforcing the best possible way to learn based off research and guidance for teachers to implement. But without feedback and assessing students, it negatively impacts students' abilities to improve or gain knowledge in a classroom. So by implementing the assessments above, it allows for students to be a high priority. As a teacher, it is important to be able to correctly engage with students and teachers, to extend beyond my teaching, which is reflected through the first practicum, as without it, it halters my performance, which draws to Centre 6 and 7. Australian Teaching Standards 2011. For future implementation within my teaching and specialised teaching area, mathematics, I will extend on boundaries to create students who are divergent thinking, curious, and able to form positive habits, connected to creative classroom pedagogy, as I feel this pedagogy positively impacts students as well as the teacher to show engagement. But I will also go beyond and research to further my teaching practices.